شهر رمضان الذي أنزل
Assalamu
فيه
alaikum wa rahmatullahi
القرآن.
wa barakatuh. Welcome back in this month of Ramadan with the Quran. When we think about the Prophet Abraham or Ibrahim, he is a significant prophet. He's also called the patriarch because through him, three streams emerge. One is that of Christianity, one is out of Judaism, and one is, of course, of Islam. So he's known as the patriarch in all three religious traditions. In the Quran, he is mentioned in many places in terms of his sacrifice, but he also had this ability to inquire. He was a curious person. In the Quran, we get this idea that he was constantly asking questions and he was looking for certainty. And I think for human beings, he embodies what we should be like, looking for certainty, looking for answers, finding ways of looking at the bigger questions. And in the Quran, when you look at his life, you do find that. You do find that also he was troubled by the people around him. He refused to bow to societal pressures. He refused to worship God just because everybody else was doing it. Nowadays, we live in a world where government, policy, academia, every institution just goes with whatever's popular, right? Without really thinking about, well, is this the right thing to do? Is this true? Do we have a basis for this? But rather, because it's popular, everybody brands it in certain ways and everybody moves in a certain direction, which is an important lesson because just because everybody's doing something does not necessarily make it right. We don't measure truth by numbers. We measure it on its own values, on epistemology. How certain are we that this is the right thing to do or this is the truth? So this is very, very important because we need to be critically thinking about our actions, about the choices that we make, the things that we do. And that's a much more fulfilling life. The philosophers, always talk about a fulfilling life is a life where people ask questions and people live and pursue truth and happiness. And this is what Islam really wants you to do, what submission to Allah really is, because by submitting to Allah, by trusting in Allah, we can really bring down these fires that are burning everywhere and destroying people's homes in a metaphorical sense, or burning within us. And we find this really clear in the story of Ibrahim in one incident where Nimrod and his people gather to burn him. They've been collecting wood to burn this fire, to fuel this fire for a month. So they've been preparing to kill him, and they don't like what he says because he speaks the truth and he wants what's best for them. But he trusts in Allah. And so they create this fire and they let it burn for 7 days. And then the devil incites them to throw him into the fire. Now, it's a very scary scene. But because Ibrahim ﷺ before this went through a process of truth seeking and he was convinced of the truth that he was following Allah, and he submitted himself to Allah, he had a profound sense of trust in Allah. And this is really, really important because if you think about a previous video, we talked about the youth in Surah Kahf and how they trusted in God. And trust in God is so powerful that the entire world can be brought into your service by God's command. So here, fire, which has its own fitra, which is to burn, which is to rise, does something different by Allah's command. And of course, this is an important scientific observation. It's also a miracle in the sense that what we normally expect to happen through our observations in a laboratory or in any other experience doesn't quite happen here. The fire doesn't burn Ibrahim. And that's because nothing happens in this world except by God's command. And God is not bound by his creation. So even though he created the fire and its nature is to burn, it doesn't necessarily follow that for God Every time he creates the fire, it will burn, because he is the creator and he can change the rules of the game if he so wishes to. And this is how miracles work. They are kharq aada. They don't follow normal habitual patterns. The normal pattern, if you light a match, is that it will burn, right? That's going to be 9 out of 10 times or 10 out of 10 times. But for God, that's not true, because He's not bound by any law of physics or biology or chemistry or whatever else it may be. So that's important to bear in mind from a theological perspective. So Ibrahim is thrown into this fire, and even then he's being tested. The entire heavens is in uproar, if you like, at what's being done to Ibrahim, this injustice that's been done to him. And Jibreel comes to him and he says, look, if you want to be saved, you can be saved. But Ibrahim, because he's been through this process of cleansing himself and burning away these desires, and he's connected to his creator, he says, I don't need your help. I trust in Allah. Right? And that's very profound. To have that profound level of trust in Ibrahim is something fascinating. And of course, we know him by the laqab, we know him by the title of Khalilullah. He is the friend, or maybe a better word, the confidant. He's the one who is very close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He has this idea of being very, very close to his creator. And that comes through a journey. Every one of us should aspire to become a Khalil, a friend of Allah, awliya Allah, this idea of coming close to Him. And that means we need to burn away our hopes for the desires and the dunya and everything else, because that's what the fire really resembles, right? Anger, desire, shahwa. In the month of Ramadan, we are taming this beast, this fire, by fasting, by not giving it fuel, right? By not giving the nafs the food that it needs to burn. So you can see the relationship between all of these seemingly disparate episodes in the Quran. And so Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam is saved, but he is also experiencing something that's unique only to him. The Quran talks about how Allah commands that قُلْنَا يَا نَارُ كُونِي بَرْدًا وَسَلَامًا عَلَى Ibrahim. Two things happen. The fire is commanded to become cool and become safe, salaman, for him. And in some narrations, it mentions that that was the best time he ever had, actually, in the fire. So again, we go back to this idea that often we judge by what we see. The zahir, we see someone in the fire and we assume that naturally, because of our habit of thinking, that they are burning and they're in pain. But the beauty of Allah's command here is that he was having the best time of his life. And sometimes we might see people in that state, that they're struggling, but actually that might be the best time of their lives, because it's bringing them closer to their creator. And it's struggles that really make us stronger. Our challenges are what makes us better, sympathetic, empathetic, more compassionate human beings. If we just had everything our way, the way we wanted it, then we'd just be a bunch of greedy, selfish, self-entitled bunch of people. But by going through these challenges, we learn the art of humility and graciousness and the fadl of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is very, very important, that when we have tawheed, monotheism, and we really believe in Allah and we submit ourselves to Allah, just like Ibrahim alayhi salatu salam did, and the prophets after and before him have done, then we come to realize that Allah, through His power, because He is in charge of everything, can make miracles literally happen for us. I've met many people who have experienced miracles in their own lives. Things have happened for them that they've never imagined would happen because of their sense of piety, their tawakkul, and their trust in Allah. So this is a month in which we should think about connecting to Allah and having only hopes and aspirations in Him, and not in other people or other structures. They will inevitably fail and let us down. There are only means to achieve certain ends, but Allah is the one who controls every sabab, every mean, including the fire. So we ask Allah to make this a month of coolness for us, bardan, but also salaman for us as well. Just like Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam was in a moment of comfort, while everybody else was observing perhaps this outward distress that he might be perceiving, he was truly connected to his creator. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless one and all. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.